The studio lights flared to life like the ignition of a storm. The LED ticker at the bottom of the screen flashed, "Live Debate, the Future of Freedom in America." The room was silent, but heavy with anticipation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez adjusted her mic with a composed flick of her fingers. She wore a deep charcoal suit and a calm confidence that didn't waver, even as Lauren Boebert, sitting across from her in a crimson blazer, leaned forward with a grin more suited to a gunfight than a discussion. The moderator, visibly tense, introduced both women with restrained formality. "Tonight, we welcome two members of Congress whose names ignite headlines and, sometimes, firestorms." The camera panned. Boebert spoke first, voice saccharine but dripping with edge. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez talks a lot about rights and fairness, yet she wants to disarm law-abiding Americans and hand freedom over to the bureaucrats in Washington. A quiet "ooh" rippled from the audience. AOC's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Boebert smirked, sensing an opening. She continued, "If we followed AOC's logic, Americans wouldn't be allowed to defend their homes, but illegal immigrants would be welcomed with open arms and free health care." Gasps now. The moderator shifted nervously. Still, AOC said nothing. She simply reached for her water, took a sip, then leaned toward the mic, her voice clear, smooth, and razor-sharp. "You don't need a weapon to defend your house if your government doesn't leave you behind to rot. But of course, you wouldn't know what that kind of country looks like. You've never tried to build one, only burn it down from the inside." A murmur turned into applause. Even the camera operator paused. Lauren's smile twitched. "You can rehearse lines, Alexandria. But this isn't theater. This is America." AOC didn't blink. "Exactly. And in America, we don't let fear masquerade as patriotism." Now the moderator interjected, trying to regain control, but the temperature had already spiked. The first round had begun, and neither woman was pulling punches. The red, on-air light above the studio door pulsed like a silent warning as the second segment began. The moderator barely had a chance to read the next question, something about national unity, when Boebert cut in, her voice sharp, condescending. "Unity?" she scoffed. "You preach unity, Alexandria, but your policies divide Americans more than any wall could. You divide by race, by class, by guilt. You pretend you're the voice of the people, but you've never worked a real job in your life." The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, laughter, a few scattered boos. AOC's head tilted slightly. Her expression froze like glass right before it cracks. She leaned into the mic, her tone low, but deadly calm. "Lauren, the last real job you had was serving burgers to drunks at your husband's bar, right? And yet here you are lecturing me about work ethic. I guess we all have our definitions of service." The audience erupted. The moderator visibly blanched. A technician off-screen gestured for a commercial break, but the director refused. This was gold. Boebert's smile vanished. "You elitist brat," she spat, "hiding behind Twitter followers and socialist slogans. You don't represent America. You represent Brooklyn echo chambers and self-righteous guilt trips." AOC, and you represent what? Trailer park fascism with a Glock in your purse? The audience exploded. Laughter, shouts, outrage. Boebert, at least I don't pretend to be oppressed while flying first class and sipping oat milk lattes. AOC, at least I don't need to pose with assault rifles to feel relevant. Now it was chaos. The moderator raised his hands, stammering into his mic. "Ladies, please, let's bring this back to—" But no one was listening anymore. The camera zoomed in on both women, inches from each other now, eyes locked in pure disdain. It wasn't a debate anymore. It was a duel. And the audience? They couldn't look away. The camera zoomed in, catching every micro-expression. Boebert's jaw clenched tight. AOC's eyebrows arched ever so slightly, but her stare was lethal. Between them, the moderator sat like a referee in a title fight, one hand hovering over his earpiece, desperately awaiting instruction from the control room. But no one dared cut to commercial now. This wasn't politics. This was war. "You know what your problem is, Alexandria?" Boebert hissed, half smiling. "You think being loud makes you smart, but you're just an angry little socialist with a spotlight." AOC blinked, once, then leaned forward, resting both hands on the desk. "And you're a walking meme who couldn't pass high school civics. If brains were bullets, you'd still be unarmed." The crowd roared, almost drowning out the gasp from the moderator. One of the crew whispered, "We're trending already." Boebert didn't back down. "People like you don't love this country. You love attention. You'd sell out the flag just to get a few more retweets." AOC. "And people like you love cosplaying as patriots while treating the Constitution like toilet paper when it doesn't serve your ego." Now, even the crew behind the cameras stopped pretending to work. One production assistant whispered, "Should we separate them?" Another replied, "God, no. This is viral gold." The moderator cleared his throat. "Let's please return to the—" Boebert cut in. "You're not even brave enough to condemn the chaos your own supporters caused." AOC, icy calm. "I've condemned more than you've ever comprehended, including your IQ." The audience went feral, half laughing, half shouting. It was pandemonium, but neither woman blinked. "You're nothing but a TikTok Che Guevara," Boebert snapped. "And you're a Walmart Ann Coulter," AOC fired back. No one could tell who was winning, only that everyone was watching. And the world? The world was already clipping it, subtitling it, turning it into GIFs, stitches, reactions, and headlines. This wasn't a debate. It was the moment. And it was far from over. The moderator finally managed to regain control of the segment, but only barely. The screen behind him now read, Segment 4, The Role of Government in American Lives. He cleared his throat, voice steady but strained. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Boebert. This segment focuses on the size and role of federal government. Please, proceed. AOC didn't hesitate. Her voice was firm, calm, and sharp as cut glass. The government should exist to serve the people. Invest in healthcare, education, infrastructure. Not to spy. Not to militarize the streets. And certainly not to subsidize billionaires while our schools crumble. She didn't look at Boebert, but the words were unmistakably directed at her brand of libertarian minimalism. Boebert, smirking, jumped in. Spoken like a true socialist. The more you give government power, the more it controls you. Americans don't want federal babysitters. They want freedom to protect their families, run their businesses, and say what they believe without being canceled. The crowd buzzed. AOC turned, expression unwavering. Freedom isn't just the right to own a gun or post memes. It's also the right to see a doctor without going bankrupt. To send your child to a school that doesn't have mold in the ceiling. You talk about liberty, Lauren, but you confuse it with neglect. Boebert leaned forward, her voice gaining heat. You want to tax Americans into submission. You call it fairness, but it's theft. You redistribute what people earn and pretend it's justice. AOC. No one is asking billionaires to give away their yachts. We're just asking them to pay the same tax rate as the teachers who educate their kids." The audience applauded. Even some of Boebert's usual supporters looked momentarily caught off guard. Boebert, undeterred, shifted to a new angle. "What you call equity, the Constitution calls government overreach. We are not a nation of equal outcomes. We are a nation of equal opportunity." AOC met her gaze directly. "And what good is opportunity if it's just a myth sold to keep people compliant? The Constitution also promises a more perfect union, not a survival of the richest." The studio crackled with energy. Neither woman raised their voice, but every line was like a chess move, deliberate, strategic, calculated for maximum impact. The moderator looked from one to the other. For once, he didn't interrupt. He didn't dare. This wasn't noise. This was an ideological showdown. And it was captivating. The moderator steadied his voice, sensing the intensity in the room. "Let's pivot now," he said, "to something more forward-looking. Where do each of you see this country heading? And what do you believe your vision offers that your opponent's does not?" AOC didn't hesitate. "The future of America depends on bold investment. Climate resilience, clean energy jobs, universal health care, debt-free education. We have the resources. We just need the will to use them for people, not profit. If we don't act now, we'll leave a broken planet and an unequal economy to our children." She leaned slightly toward Boebert, her words clear and measured. "Pretending we can deregulate our way out of collapse is not courage. It's cowardice, dressed in patriotism." The crowd stirred again. Some nodded. Others bristled. Boebert fired back. "You want a country run by bureaucrats, not by Americans. You call it investing. I call it bankrupting. You scare people into submission with climate hysteria while ignoring the fact that fossil fuels still power this country, feed our families, and keep the lights on." She turned sharply. "You're not preparing America for the future. You're trying to erase its past." AOC arched an eyebrow. "The past is only worth preserving if it serves justice in the present. Our traditions don't need to hold us hostage. They need to evolve." Boebert smirked. "Evolve? Into what? A nation where success is punished? Where everyone's feelings come before facts? Where woke ideology writes our laws?" AOC. "Into a nation where a child's zip code doesn't determine their destiny. Where clean air and education aren't luxuries. Where progress isn't mocked because it threatens profit." There was a silence, not of boredom, but of tension, of electricity. The moderator spoke gently, as if not to shatter the fragile moment. "Congresswoman Boebert, earlier you said Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez was un-American. Do you stand by that?" Boebert didn't blink. "I stand by this. She may love her version of America, but it's not the one our founders built." AOC leaned forward again, eyes steady. "No, Lauren, it's the one they dreamed of, even if they didn't live up to it themselves." That landed. The audience froze. The moderator looked speechless. And just like that, the tables turned. The humiliation Boebert had tried to orchestrate had boomeranged. It wasn't just about who shouted louder. It was about who made the future feel possible. And in that moment, AOC's vision silenced the studio. The studio lights flickered gently above as the moderator gestured toward the screen behind him, which now read, "Live Viewer Interaction." "We are opening the floor to questions from across the country," he said. "Be respectful. Be direct. Our first caller is a high school civics teacher from Ohio." The screen split, revealing a woman in her late 40s, glasses perched on her nose, her voice calm but loaded with urgency. "My students watch this show. They're trying to understand democracy. But when they hear words like un-American thrown around, how do we teach them to listen when their leaders refuse to? A brief silence. AOC answered first. We teach them that disagreement is part of democracy, but dehumanizing your opponent isn't. We lead by example. And sometimes that means calling out hypocrisy without erasing someone's dignity. Boebert rolled her eyes but held back, for now. The moderator nodded. Next caller, New Mexico. A small business owner. The man appeared, speaking fast. I work 70 hours a week. I can't afford private insurance. I don't qualify for subsidies. I just want to know, why is fixing this still a partisan debate? AOC leaned forward. Because greed is bipartisan, but change isn't. We need courage to say healthcare isn't a luxury, it's a right. And no one should fear going broke for getting sick. Boebert cut in. And who's paying for that? Him? Me? Everyone watching at home? AOC. No, Lauren. The same corporations you vote to give tax breaks to while he drowns in bills. The caller didn't respond. He just nodded. The moderator moved quickly. Next, Dallas, Texas, a retired Marine. This one didn't hold back. I served 3 tours. I don't need speeches. I need leadership. Stop the slogans. Tell me what freedom means to you. Boebert answered sharply. It means no one tells you what car to drive, what to inject into your body, or what to say. AOC countered smoothly. It also means not living under fear of medical debt, gun violence, or poisoned air. Real freedom includes security, not just slogans. The veteran sat silent, then said, Fair enough. The moderator swallowed. Last one. Harlem, New York, a high school senior. The girl was beaming. This is for both of you. What are you willing to sacrifice for the future you claim to believe in? That question hit differently. AOC spoke, low and clear. I've already sacrificed comfort, privacy, and peace. And I'll keep sacrificing if it means my generation and yours can live in dignity. Boebert raised an eyebrow. I've sacrificed friendships, reputation, and sleep. Because I believe freedom is worth fighting for, even when it's unpopular. For the first time all night, neither woman interrupted the other. The camera slowly zoomed out. The moderator exhaled. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a reflection of a fractured nation speaking through 2 fearless voices. And the whole country was watching. The moderator tried to steer the discussion back to policy, but the energy in the room had changed. The air felt charged, tense enough to snap. AOC and Boebert sat barely a meter apart, no longer hiding behind political courtesy. Boebert turned directly to her opponent now. You claim to fight for the people, but every bill you back adds another chain to their feet. Regulation, taxation, surveillance. That's not freedom. It's a velvet cage. AOC didn't flinch. At least I'm not selling fear in a flag-wrapped package. You preach about liberty, but it's a smokescreen. For inaction, for greed, for letting the powerful stay untouchable. Boebert's voice rose. Don't talk to me about fear. You're the one terrifying Americans with doomsday climate rhetoric, promising utopias you can't deliver, and accusing anyone who disagrees of being a villain. AOC leaned in now, her tone sharp as glass. And you're the one clinging to culture war distractions while bridges collapse, schools crumble, and children go hungry. You scream woke at everything that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe that's not leadership. Maybe it's cowardice. The studio audience gasped. The moderator froze. Boebert's eyes narrowed. She spoke through gritted teeth. You want to burn the house down and call it progress. I want to save it before your policies bury this country. AOC. Save it? You want to rewind it. Back to a time when women were silent, minorities invisible, and profit was king. Boebert. I want to protect the Constitution. You want to rewrite it. AOC. No, I want to fulfill it. That line struck like lightning. Silence. Then murmurs. A single applause. Then more. Boebert's fists clenched. She opened her mouth again, but for the first time hesitated. The crowd wasn't just watching now. They were choosing. And in that instant, the headline wrote itself. Boebert tried to humiliate AOC, but it backfired instantly. The studio lights dimmed slightly as the moderator glanced at the clock. Only minutes remained, but the room felt timeless, suspended in conflict. Every word now carried the weight of a closing argument. Final question, the moderator announced. No interruptions, no back and forth. Each of you, why should America trust your voice over the other? AOC answered first, calm, controlled, unshaken. Because I believe leadership isn't about being loud. It's about being present. It's not about dominating a room. It's about standing up for those who never get invited into it. I don't have all the answers, but I listen, I learn, and I fight like hell for a future where compassion isn't weakness. It's power. She paused, then delivered the final punch. And if that threatens the old order, maybe the old order needs to go. The audience erupted. The moderator turned to Boebert, who inhaled sharply, eyes blazing. People should trust me, because I won't lie to make them feel safe. I won't promise fairy tales just to win applause. I believe in a free America, not one ruled by elites or bureaucrats or social media mobs. She leaned forward, her tone a mix of defiance and desperation. I say what people are too scared to say. And if that offends you, good. That means you're paying attention. Half the room applauded. The other half stayed frozen. The moderator nodded slowly. Thank you both. That concludes tonight's debate. But just as the camera panned out, AOC turned slightly toward Boebert and said, barely audible, but perfectly timed. You didn't just lose the argument, Lauren. You lost the room. Boom. The feed cut. The logo appeared. But across the country, screenshots, clips, and hashtags were already exploding. And within minutes, it had gone viral. As the screen faded to black and the network switched to commercials, the real battle had just begun. Online. Within minutes, clips from the final exchange flooded social media. The moment AOC said, "You lost the room," became a meme, a GIF, a slogan. TikTok teens edited it into rap beats. Instagram Reels remixed it with dramatic music. Twitter exploded with hashtags, AOCV's Boebert, where you lost the room on freedom or future. CG live TV meltdown. Even mainstream news anchors couldn't resist. One headline blared, Congress goes viral. AOC's final blow stuns the nation. Meanwhile, conservative circles fired back. Influencers called the debate a scripted ambush, accusing the network of bias. Boebert loyalists tweeted, "She spoke the truth. The left just can't handle it." Boebert said what needed to be said. Real America stood with her tonight. But something had shifted. Even in red-leaning forums, a quiet question echoed. Did she go too far? Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to breaking down the body language of each speaker. Fact-checkers worked overtime. Psychology experts weighed in on tone, posture, and micro-expressions. CNN ran a poll. Who won the debate? AOC, 67%. Boebert, 28%. Undecided, 5%. More shocking was the youth response. Zoomers and millennials began resharing AOC's key quotes like scripture. Leadership isn't about being loud, It's about being present. If compassion threatens the old order, maybe it needs to go. College campuses planned discussion panels the next morning. Political science classes changed their syllabi to include the broadcast. Meanwhile, Boebert's campaign manager released a defensive press statement. But the damage was already done. What had begun as another polarized debate had become a defining moment in a generation's political awakening. And in living rooms across America, parents, children, students, workers, all asked the same thing. Did we just witness history? It had been 48 hours since the debate, but the aftershock was still radiating across the country. AOC stood by a window in her D.C. office, sunlight warming her face as her phone buzzed endlessly. Texts from supporters, media requests, even cautious praise from across the aisle. She scrolled silently, stopping at one message from a teenage girl in Michigan. "You made me believe again. I want to study politics now. Thank you for showing strength doesn't mean shouting." She locked the screen, inhaled deeply, and for the first time in weeks, smiled. Across town, Boebert sat alone in a studio dressing room, makeup still untouched. The echo of the crowd's silence haunted her like a refrain. Campaign advisors shuffled outside, unsure how to repair the damage. Some donors had already pulled back. But Boebert wasn't thinking about politics anymore. She was staring at a paused frame from the debate, AOC looking directly at her, delivering that final line. "You didn't just lose the argument, you lost the room." And maybe, Boebert thought, she had. But even in defeat, she knew something. Her supporters would double down. She wasn't out. Not yet. The culture war she thrived on wasn't going away. Not while fear still sold better than hope. Meanwhile, the media crowned the moment as the Great Divide debate. Think pieces flooded the internet. The Atlantic called it a televised reckoning. Fox News labeled it a partisan ambush. But to everyday Americans, it wasn't about party lines anymore. It was about tone, about truth, about two women who embodied the raw, unfiltered core of a country still trying to find its voice. And when the next morning dawned, the question wasn't who won. It was, what comes next? The answer was unclear. But one thing was certain. America had just witnessed a spark. And somewhere, deep in that broadcast signal, a new fire had started to burn. As the debate came to a shocking end, one thing was clear. This was not just about policy. It was about power, ego, and the fight for America's future. AOC and Boebert didn't just clash. They exploded in front of millions. And the echoes of what happened tonight won't fade anytime soon. What do you think? Who won this battle? And what does it mean for the next one? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video if you were hooked. And don't forget to subscribe for more unfiltered moments from America's most explosive voices. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold.